My name is Norma Stanley, and welcome to Disability World. Hello and welcome to Disability World TV. I'm your host, Norma Stanley. And on this episode, we have some really special guests who are going to be speaking to us, as you can see, via Zoom, and sharing their individual perspectives about what has been a commemorative year for the disability community and its legislation. July 26th marked the 30th anniversary of the American Disabilities Act, which is a landmark civil rights legislation that was signed by President Bush about 30 years ago, as we said, to increase access and opportunity for people with disabilities across society, including particularly the workplace. This year also marks the 75th observance of the National Disabilities Awareness Month, which was declared in '88 by the United States Congress in the month of October, to raise awareness of employment needs and contributions of individuals with all types of disabilities. Both milestones are being commemorated with a range of events and activities this month, particularly in both private and public sector. And with regard to the public sector, the theme is increasing access and opportunity, which is what we all here are trying to do. So on our show today, I'm thankful to have been able to tap some very qualified people to talk about this topic and share their experiences and expertise on accessing opportunity and accessibility for people with disabilities. And so let me introduce our panelists. First, we have Ms. Nadine Vogel, who is the CEO of Springboard Global Enterprises. And it's home to Springboard Consulting, Disability Mama, the WIP Group, and Springboard Foundation. And her company works with corporations around the world to mainstream people with disabilities in the global workplace, and marketplace. And this company, and Ms. Vogel, is also the producers of the world-renowned Disability Matters Conference and Awards Gala. In addition, she is the author of Dive In, which is, it says a springboard, Dive In, springboard into the profitability, productivity, and potential of the special needs workforce. So that's Ms. Nadine Vogel. And then below is Ms. Lachi. And Lachi is an award-nominated recording artist. She's an accomplished record producer, voice actress, author, public speaker, social media influencer, and model. She's an accomplished entertainer and entrepreneur, and she's a member of Respectability, who was recently a part of their recently announced Speakers Bureau that they put together with 11 remarkable women who have disabilities in New York. And that organization works to fight the stigmas that deal with people with disabilities and advance their place in society. And then we have Mr. Vincenzo Piscopo, who is somebody who I respect everybody here, but I really am just so pleased that he could be a part of this. He has been Coca-Cola. He works with the Coca-Cola company, has been with them for about 22 years. He's currently the Director of Community and Stakeholder Relations. He's also president of the Disability Business Resource Group for the Coca-Cola company, and he's also founder and executive director of Wheels of Happiness Foundation, where they use his lived experience and expertise to help people with motor disabilities in disadvantaged areas of the world. And last but not least, we have Ms. Myrna Clayton, who is an international jazz singer and cultural ambassador for the U.S. State Department. Also known as America's Songbird, she is also the founder and executive director of Show Ability, a nonprofit organization working to bring to breaking down barriers as well as increasing awareness, opportunities, and accessibility for performing artists with disabilities. And as I said before, I'm Norma Stanley, host of Disability World. And thank you all for being on the show today. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Well, we're going to jump right in because I know you have limited time and we want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to share their perspectives on a couple of questions. And I'm going to ask the first question, which basically, you know, what are you doing? What is your perspective with regards to how the National Disability Employment Awareness Month has grown and has been able to bring awareness to the disability population? What are you doing as an individual, and what are you doing as part of an organization to help further the cause of what that organization and what that effort is trying to accomplish? And let's start with you, Nadine.
So, you know, I think that the National Disability Employment Awareness Month celebration is so important. We do a lot of work with companies on all different aspects of this. My concern is when a company only looks at disability inclusion through the lens of a once-a-year celebration, right? So this needs to be part and parcel of a very integrated program that the company is doing around awareness. It's also very important that when we deliver etiquette and awareness, we're doing so looking at the entire spectrum of disability. We don't want to ever make folks think that it's only people with intellectual disabilities or it's only this type of disability. So I think that whatever we do and how Springboard does it is on a very practical level. It has to be relevant, it has to be timely, and do it in a way that is respectful to both individuals with disabilities and those that are going to engage with us.
Absolutely. And what about you, Lachi?
I definitely agree with Nadine in the sense of we really can't pigeonhole disability employment awareness to just the month of October, but just the way that when we focus on disability pride in July, we should not just only be proud of the amazing human beings with disabilities throughout the month of July. And one of the things that a lot of organizations are starting to realize, the stats have come out that those who do employ disability and focus on disability and diversity inclusion do come back with a 30 to 35% increase in revenue. And that's not something to sneeze at. That is a large scalable number. And we are noticing that folks are starting to turn around and see these numbers. But the last thing we want to do, and yes, it is great that right now this conversation is being had very loud due to the current climate. However, we don't want this, discussion to end once things sort of return back to normal or once people start to feel comfortable again. We want this conversation to continue.
Absolutely. And give us your perspective as a Coca-Cola representative and corporate representative, Vincenzo, as well as somebody who deals with this on a daily basis from a personal level.
So I agree with what the rest of the panelists are saying. I think the awareness, the Employment Awareness Month, it's good. It's a tool, it's a strategy, but it's not a strategy that can live by itself, right? It has to be part of bigger initiatives, right? And all those bigger initiatives have to be to make sure that we raise the awareness of people with disability, both as great employees, a great capital asset, but also as consumers. And the reason I think it's so important to bring that awareness also as consumers, because the more that corporate organizations realize that we are a very important consumer base, they will be more motivated to hire people in the disability space to better understand that consumer so that they can better speak to the consumer and recruit them and retain them as consumers. I think that we are in a good moment right now. I think we are in a pivot point, and unfortunately, COVID has helped. But there's a couple of things that are happening right now. Organizations are starting to understand the importance of including disability as part of their corporate responsibility agenda. Second, they are starting to understand that we are great consumers, that, and not only that it's important to recruit us, but when they recruit us, you are also recruiting our network, our friends.
That's right.
Which is extremely important. And also are starting to understand that they need to have nothing about us without us is
Yes.
more and more important everywhere. So we need to seize that moment, and to seize that moment, we cannot limit it to 1 month.
Absolutely, I agree. And give us your perspective, Myrna.
Thank you. You know, our organization, now the new name, we've rebranded to Show Ability, from Able To. We are a very much so boots on the ground organization as it relates to National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And we have held disability awareness career days at elementary schools to get those young people to really, that's featuring professionals with disabilities, so that the young people across the entire school can meet and learn to engage with persons with disabilities. We also hire performers with disabilities, and so our efforts to for employment, we're wanting to employ people with disability in our productions and in our shows. And so that very much so is boots on the ground effort, because we recognize a couple of things that everybody on the panel knows, but maybe not some of your listeners, that the disability community is the largest minority population in the country, 20%, and the only minority population that anybody can join. Yes, practicality. What some people may not realize is the buying population, what Enzo was speaking to, $490 billion in disposable income, $21 billion in discretionary income. That's the largest of any minority group, but nobody's spending toward that. Nobody's recognizing that. And so when organizations and corporations begin to, begin to see not only the value of the individual, but the value of the persons in the community, and so collectively, then at that point, it will be like everybody else, that that this is not a month-long or 2-month-long initiative that focuses on persons with disability. It's a lifestyle, and it's a lifelong effort. And so that's how we see it, and we're so excited with this opportunity to really bring attention to and to touch those persons who, we realize that this population is very much so stigmatized and socialized invisible, hidden in plain view. And that's, we believe firmly, as you know, Norma, that we believe that it's because from childhood we've been taught not to point and not to stare. We've never learned to engage. And so as a result, that's why we're going into the elementary schools, so that we can get those kids who've been newly socialized not to point, not to stare, to recognize, oh, they're just like us. They just do things differently. They're very able and capable, just different. And that adds to a lot of other things, anti-bullying. There's all kinds of things that are just terrific. And so for us, with Show Ability, it's all about showing a person's ability. That's a ploy, but it's very true, in terms of a person's ability to be employed, a person's ability to employ, because a number of people with disability own their own businesses.
That's right.
And they are employers. And so it works both sides of the economic, because this is about an economic issue. Employment is economics. And so this is an economic issue. And when people start recognizing the value of a person's skill level, whatever that skill level is, it's at that point, then you're not differentiating. You're elevating the uniqueness of the person as you would any employee.
Absolutely. And being in a global society, this is something that's impacting us, not just here in the US, but all around the world. And we have to take full advantage, and companies need to take full advantage of the opportunities to employ people with disabilities and engage people with disabilities in ways they really have not fully maximized or leveraged. And they need to just do better, because again, that's money that's sitting on the table. I know from a multicultural marketing standpoint, with regard to the African American consumer and even the Hispanic consumer, it took years for companies to recognize the buying power of those consumer segments. And they're still now, reaching out and targeting, but it took years for them to recognize and really start focusing on including them in their marketing strategies. So it's probably going to take a little bit longer for the disabilities, but at least people are starting to listen. And that's where we need to be. So tell us individually, how did you come to be a part and become so passionate and dedicated to the cause of raising awareness of the disability community? Let's go back to Nadine.
I have two adult daughters, both of whom have disabilities. They are 29 and 21, which makes me feel very old. but you know, very much looking at, to Myrna, to your point, you know, they can be anything, they can do anything, right? The disability is not what limits them. It's everybody's opinions, right, that's limiting. And I saw that from probably the first week my older daughter was in the neonatal intensive care unit, just how the doctors and the nurses reacted. It immediately struck a chord with me. And so I've been at this a really, really long time and have dealt myself with deformities in my feet and ended up in a wheelchair twice for almost a year each time. So, you know, again, seeing how people address me and just talk with me differently if I'm sitting in a wheelchair than if I'm walking in their office, right? Or in the store. And I just, you know, I think for probably all of us, it comes down to this issue of two things: bias. Mm-hmm. We hear a lot of corporations, you know, delivering unconscious bias training. I think coming into this personally, what you realize first and foremost is that it is bias. But we don't have people owning it. It doesn't mean they're trying to be mean. It just may be the way they grew up or whatever. They have to own it. So if we go in and go back to your other question about delivering disability etiquette and awareness training, if we don't do it in a way that helps people understand their biases, right, and then change that, the behavior in and of itself isn't going to change. Because people like to banter around saying, I'm now disability confident, and I feel that unless you're confident, you're not going to be confident, or you shouldn't be anyway. Just my personal.
What about you, Lachi?
What got me excited and pumped to champion for disability is a question?
Yes, yes.
So I mean, I myself have a disability. I am visually impaired, legally blind. I have been all my life, was born that way. And interestingly enough, when I was growing up, it's not necessarily a non-visible disability, but it sort of is because I don't use a cane or a dog, as it's not a lens issue. I don't wear glasses. So when I would hold things really close or need extra help with things, a lot of the other students in my class or in my situation even would think, you know, maybe there's something wrong with her, as opposed to maybe she doesn't have good eyesight. So they would treat me a certain way. They would treat me like I was a little slower and things like that. And my issue was that I was too afraid to speak up, to maybe correct them, to self-advocate, to do anything. And so I grew up very kind of shy and insular. And I had a lot of issues growing up in that sense. And it wasn't until after I started my music career that I started kind of coming out about it. And the response was, oh, wow, she's such an inspiration. She's so, that is so amazing that you were able to overcome your disability and start doing music. And I have to say that I really hated that. I wasn't here to be an inspiration. I was here to do music and show off my skills. So I ended up hiding my disability again and focusing on really becoming a successful musician. I don't know if that was the best move or not, but what I will say is I walked into rooms, I got more and more confident, I gained a lot of success, I started getting more recognition, got my music into radio, TV, film, all sorts of things. And then when I saw my success, I realized, okay, well now I have a pedestal, like I have a something to stand on, I have a platform to stand on. What can I use this microphone for? And I decided, you know what? I don't want another little girl in my situation to go through what I went through and look at the TV and not see someone she can point at and say, hey, I want to be that, because I didn't have that. And so that's why I didn't have that confidence. So I decided, you know what? I want to be that person for anyone coming up in my shoes. So it's got me very pumped and invigorated. And my songs are not super inspirational. They're powerful and they're about empowerment. But I'm all about just being a confident, sexy Black woman. And that if you have a disability, you can be sexy, you can be confident, you can do whatever you want. You don't have to be some sad sob story inspiration. Absolutely. You can be a badass. And that gets me very pumped. And that's why I do what I do.
Awesome, awesome. And tell us your story, Vincenzo.
Yes, I love your story, Lashi.
Yes.
Yeah, totally agree with you. So my story is a little bit
Thank you.
different. I have been, I have a spinal cord injury that I acquired 10 years ago. So I was in both bands, right? The able-bodied band, and then I moved to this band. And one side note, I also have a degree in creativity, and I've been working a lot on innovation and all that. When I entered the disability community, it was a big aha moment for me. And I think my background in innovation and creativity was actually the trigger because I was able to meet so many brilliant people in this community. Brilliant people that were like, oh my God, I mean, above average in smart, but in creativity, in all that. And what when I started putting that with the fact that, what, creativity is like a muscle, right? The more you use it, the more you challenge yourself, the more creative you become. And what happens with people with disability is that we are in creative problem solving mood 24/7.
That's right.
Because we live in a world that wasn't made for us. So we are constant. Since the time I wake up, since the time I go to bed, I am problem solving, right? Because, things fall, I cannot connect and whatever. And when I get out of my house and, there is a bump, but, I go to a hotel and it's always a portfolio of challenges. And we are constantly solving that. And that makes us, one, extremely creative. Second, extremely perseverant, and extremely resilient. And those three things are extremely valued in our work, in our work market. So that actually, made me think, man, there is an opportunity here. The people with disability community is a treasure, it's a gem that needs to be leveraged. Because when we leverage them, we, the people with disability, are not the only one that wins. The whole community wins because
That's right.
people productive. For the government, it's more people working, more people adding value, more people paying taxes. So if you think about it, it's a win-win for everybody. So the more that I got into that and the more I started being open and meeting more people, the more impressed I was with this community and the more I felt the need to really fight for them and for the community because of the benefits that it offers everybody. And unfortunately, that's why I feel that, the awareness months are very important, but they're a piece of it. It has to be part of a bigger strategy
That's right.
that changes the narrative.
Absolutely.
And because we have to move, and I love what Lachi said, Lachi is amazing because she's a hot singer, a beautiful singer, amazing singer. That happens to have a disability. So changing that narrative from that, charity perspective to, what, we can offer a lot. And if you don't leverage us, you lose, and that's what we really need to change that narrative. And that's why, I'm extremely passionate for that because I truly believe on that.
Myrna, give your perspective on that.
Wow, listening, I'm motivated so much by listening to all three of you, and of course, you, Norma. What got me started was I'm a professional singer, as Norma indicated. I do not have a disability. However, I have a heart for persons who are amazing, but are not getting the recognition that they should, or at least I believe they should. And so one particular day, I was at an event and saw a 10-year-old boy struggle to get up 3 steps into a pulpit, church pulpit, in order to sing. And I guess he had cerebral palsy because he had those crutches on his arms. But you guys, when this young man began singing, I forgot all about his challenge because he just lit up the place. He was so amazing. And I regret not having gotten his name. I wasn't thoughtful at the time to get his name. And it would so happen that about 5 years later, he crossed my mind. God would have him to cross my mind. And I wondered where he might be. And so I began asking musicians and performer friends of mine that are, band leaders, choir directors, theater persons. Hey, do you know persons with disabilities who sing? And I kid you not, no one knew of anybody. And that just made no sense to me. That just intuitively didn't make sense to me. I didn't know the numbers that I know now. And so I was like, that's just crazy. And so at that point is when I started the organization, because my background, my corporate background, I have an MBA, and my corporate background is new products and new business development. And so I operate conceptually. And so I appreciate you, Enzo, talking about creativity and innovation, having worked with hundreds of creative consumers, just seeing the opportunity to give a person a platform. And in that, I still haven't found the young man, but we've struggled to identify artists with disabilities. The reality that you spoke of, in terms of the singer spoke of, in terms of not letting anyone know that she had a disability. Well, that becomes a challenge for folks like myself who's wanting to present an opportunity to give you a platform. We're now being contacted by film producers and others who are looking for artists, actors, who have a disability, because yes, they're getting their hands slapped because they're getting actors who don't have a disability to play a person with a disability. Well, if an actor doesn't let you know that they have a disability because they're trying to quote unquote fit in, then at that point they can't hire you because they don't know you exist. And so it's really an oxymoron in that space, but neither here nor there. Back to the story. And so I started the organization, and I began looking for not just singers, but multidisciplinary performers, whether that be anybody that would be on stage, not visual artists, but performing artists, actors, dancers, models, poets, of course, singers, musicians. And in that process, my first experience was we had a hard time finding a facility, a theater that had an accessible stage. ADA says, with all due respect, you can enter the building and go to the bathroom. It's a building code situation. It is not about the person. Right. And so we found a venue in Atlanta that had an accessible stage, which was hard enough in itself with all of the theaters in Atlanta. And we had an experience. The security guard said, ma'am, if you have one more person in a wheelchair come, it's going to be a fire hazard. Well, they had 3 spaces for a wheelchair user. And I was like, well, where are the others going to go? Because with our event, we're going to have disproportionately more artists with disability, people coming with disability. And the man said, I don't know, but they can't be in here. I don't know, in the lobby maybe. And of course, that got me incensed. And at that point, I became not only interested in the artists with disabilities, but our audience as well. And so I certainly desire to build a theater that's fully inclusive, fully accessible, from street to seat, from front of house to back of house, the tech area, the green room, all of that, because theaters don't have it. Even the newer ones, they don't have it. Even last point, you can see I'm really passionate on it. Even when you come with someone, if you come with a family, Enzo, if you come to a theater with your family, you can't sit with your family. You can sit with one person and everybody else has to sit someplace else, because they're not designed for persons to come as if a person with a disability comes someplace by themselves, especially wheelchair users. But even those who have difficulty walking, whether that be cerebral palsy, or even with the blind population, the deaf population, they sit you in a section. It's just like, it's very insensitive to me. And so as a practical, application kind of person, it's like, I'm a paying customer. Treat me as if my money means something. And then lastly, when I found out that persons in the disability community have to pay extra to be able to sit at a theater or sit at a game, you have to pay extra? Oh, excuse me, hell no. What? So it's just amazing the things that the persons in the disability community have to go through, that the general population, again, because we've been taught from childhood not to point, not to stare, they never come to mind. And when we discover it, it's like, what? You have to what? It's just unbelievable, the journeys. And so to your point, Enzo, in terms of the creativity that you have to figure out. And last point, this is the thing that I've come to realize as a producer of shows and producer of events, is it's a matter of figuring it out. And that creativity is required. A person who had a child with a disability, they're having to figure it out from childhood. How do I make this child prosper? A person who has acquired, to your point, Enzo, how do I have to figure it out. This is not on my plan. This was not on my radar. I have to figure it out. And so every day is a day spent of figuring it out. I've got to figure it out today. This This was not on my plan, my to-do list. I don't know. I didn't know this was going to happen today. And so the passion is very much so there because it's equity. You know, I appreciate the bias. It's equity. An actor in New York says, I'm not disabled. What disables me are the barriers that others place in front of me. And so our organization is all about creating self-confident agents of change in the population so that you can advocate and you can speak up and demand for yourself.
Amen. And as a mother of a 32-year-old as of last Monday, who is intellectually and physically challenged, I don't like for her to miss anything. And so, you know, that's one of the reasons why I am so passionate about making sure that she gets the opportunity to be a part of whatever she decides she wants to be a part of, even if I have to sometimes make those decisions for her. Because, you know, I don't like for her to miss anything. I want her to travel. I want her to be able to go to a play in New York City, which this is not very easy to do, you know, even through COVID, before COVID. So there's so much that needs to be done. And I'm just talking about my own experience as a mother of a young woman who is a wheelchair user and who's intellectually, developmentally delayed. And, you know, I want to make sure that she gets everything she's supposed to get as a human being and, you know, whatever opportunities afforded everyone else, which is one of the reasons why I do the things that I do. We'll be right back after these messages. Stay tuned.
Next Chapter, the new CD by independent recording artist Nella Joy, is an inspirational musical fusion of R&B, soul, jazz, and hip-hop, featuring emotive songs with powerful messages like MIA and Can You Handle This? Purchase Nella Joy Next Chapter on CD Baby, iTunes, Amazon Music, or wherever you download your favorite CDs.
Nella Joy Nation Radio Show with your host, Miss Norma Stanley, the #1 radio show about disability, community news, and advocacy.
Before we go, because we only have a few minutes left, I do really want you guys to share your individual projects. What are you working on? I know, you know, you all have something going on that you might want to share with our viewing audience about something that's really important to you that you have coming up maybe at the end of this year or in 2021. So let's start with Nadine.
Oh my gosh, there's so many things.
I know. We got a few minutes. We got 10 minutes.
We have 3 TV shows that are all going to be going in November. One of them is on Bloomberg TV called Inclusion at Work, and it's all about business, right? The marketing side as well as the employment side. We have a show called The Nosh, which is really going to be anything and everything on topics that relate to disability and diversity and inclusion, you know, intersectionality, all of it coming together. And then we have one called Talking Tea with G and Me, which is actually a talk show with my 20 has disabilities. So yeah, we just, there's so many things happening. Those are the biggies right now. There's a book, 2 books coming out first quarter of next year. Oh my gosh, it's wonderful.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, that's great. Okay, Lachi, what's going on with you?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, same reaction as Nadine. Oh my gosh, so much going on. And I would love to connect with you, Nadine, and all of you after this, actually, because I mean, this is such an amazing panel. So as a musician, as a singer, I do have a lot of things going on. We are releasing tons of records over the course of the next couple of months. But what we're trying to focus on now, myself and my team, are releasing music videos that showcase disability to, I have a very non-disabled audience, and we want to showcase disability in really cool, awesome ways. So we're doing things like hiring mobily challenged dancers to dance in our music videos, or hiring ASL interpreters or those hard of hearing to interpret our videos or even be leads in the video and showcase the lyrics of the song as told by someone who's hard of hearing. So we're collaborating in plenty of ways, and and someone mentioned that consumers are with disabilities bring in $500 billion each year. And so we're working really closely with the inclusive fashion market because that is a huge market. So we're trying to get all of our music videos dressed in people using inclusive fashion designers and in spaces that are inclusive. So we're trying to do everything inclusive. So to definitely keep an eye out for a lot of those. I myself am writing a book called Triple Threat, being that I'm Black, female, and disabled. And I am also just hooking up with a lot of organizations that deal specifically with entertainment. So I would love to speak more with Miss Jazz over there about some of the things she's doing, because I've been hooking up a lot with a lot of entertainment organizations that don't necessarily focus on disability to bring that awareness to them. Things like the Recording Academy and things of that sort, to bring that awareness to them and to start them doing some of these panels themselves. I love that they're focusing on women more. I love that they're focusing on LGBTQ more. It's time for disability to also be considered a diversity.
Absolutely. And Enzo?
So, well, one of the things that I'm looking forward to do is talking to Lashi and Nadine so they can help me write my next book. I'm the only one in the panel that has not written a book, and I think I should, so I'm going to be contacting you. Maybe you guys can guide me. There are many things really that, at Coke we will be doing next year. The Disability DRG has has big plans to continue raising the awareness and also to helping the company increase the recruitment of people with disabilities and making our company a company that is more welcoming, but not only more welcoming because we already are, but a place where people with disability can actually be successful and thrive and all that. So that's a big focus. With my nonprofit, Wheels of Happiness, we are growing and we want to continue helping people around the world. We just had our virtual gala and we are working on next year's gala that hopefully will be in person. And I might be contacting Myrna, maybe she can help me with the show. Anyways, but and there are a couple of big projects in my personal life that I'm not ready to reveal, but hopefully I'll be able to reveal soon.
What about you, Myrna?
Thank you, Norma, for inviting me to be a part. And I'm so honored to be a part of this panel. Yes, I would like to work with all of you in some capacity soon, because the one thing that we know that moves any organization forward is partnership and collaboration. And so I'm very interested in that. In terms of our organization, Showability One, that's huge. This year we did a brand name change from Able to Showability, in which we're in the throes of that now. As a matter of fact, I just finished working with a team with an organization called 48 in 48, and they're helping 48 nonprofits create 48 different websites in 48 hours. And so we just did that this past weekend. So gosh, I did that too en route. But in addition to that, I'm very excited that we are having a 2-week daily course, artistic classes that we're offering. One set is for caregivers, and the other is for persons within the disability community. And there are self-care during this pandemic season, self-care for caregivers, and movement, motivational kinds of things for caregivers. And then for the disability community, we actually have music therapy, we have dance class, we have 2 separate dance classes, one for the blind population and other, and then the others with a mixed, which will include, of course, wheelchair users. I mean, anybody can join either one, but the focus is there just because of the uniqueness. And then we're also in that having, like I said, music therapy, and an improv acting class for the deaf community. Now, of course, everybody's involved and invited, but we want to specify because of the uniqueness. And so we're having that coming up in the next 2 weeks. And then in addition to that, we've just formed an inclusive chorus that features good singers with and without disabilities. And so we're having our kickoff concert. It's going to be virtual, but we're recording it live and releasing it virtually. And that recording is going to be in November. And so we're really excited about that. And then lastly, I too am working on a book, but it's going to be a children's book. And so Enzo, we got to get you in. I'm pretty excited about it. Not ready to reveal too much about it, other than that it is a children's book, and that speaks to my desire to really change that narrative, and to promote and showcase the similarities that we all as human beings, and being very humane in this situation. All human beings we're more alike than we're different. And so in addition to that, I'm preparing to do more with the U.S. State Department. One of the things that they asked me is what's my special interest, and I explained to them the disability community. And so whenever I go abroad, they make a concerted effort to, one, include persons with disabilities in the audience, or we, if possible, we can go to a school where we can work with and embrace and give exposure to persons in other countries within the disability spectrum to do that. And so I'm really excited about using my platform as much as possible to bring attention to the abilities of persons with disabilities. I wished we could come up with a different name, because disabled means broken, break apart, and it's so inappropriate. However, there's not a great name yet. People I know within the disability community don't like differently able, at least those that were born with that. They see it as patronizing, and so don't do that. I know to call a person, people first, yes, yes, yes. But I wish we could come up with something so that from a marketing standpoint, we could then promote, the uniqueness of it, as opposed to the whole name being such a already defined name. And so that's what's going on with me in a nutshell. And I like I said, thank you so very much, Norma, for allowing me and us this platform on this particular significant month. It's a great thing. Thank you.
I am so thankful for all of you for being a part of Disability World this October segment. And I really appreciate all that you guys have shared. With regards to what I have going on, you guys, my next chapter CD is out. My third book, Just Do It, is coming out, which deals with the issue of procrastination. That's coming at the end of the year. And, just continuing to, build Disability World and tell people stories like those of you that we just had a chance to speak with. So thank you. I just really appreciate you for being a part of this. And I look forward to hopefully doing something again with you guys in 2021 and even before. So thank you all for joining us today on Disability World. And before we end Disability World section today, or segment today, I want to share one motivational moment. And what we talked about today really exemplified this particular message and what people with disabilities and the disability community are working so hard to accomplish. And it says, make your life a masterpiece. Imagine no limitations on what you can be, what you can have, or what you can do. And that's a quote by Brian Tracy, and it's so true. We have to imagine our lives a masterpiece, and people with disabilities, again, are doing that every day of their lives. And we want to appreciate them and let them know that we support them in anything and everything that they're doing. And that's what Disability World TV is all about. So thank you for being a part of this show this week. And we'll have something awesome for you to check out the next time. See you soon.